presentation shortly. Today, on October 21st, we will have our presentation on Community Communications 201, given by Paul Grygiel and Justin Auciello. For help during today's webcast, please feel free to type your questions in the chat box found in the webinar toolbar to the right of your screen or call 1-800-263-6317. For content questions, please feel free to type those in the questions box and we will be able to answer those at the end of the presentation during the question and answer session. Here is a list of the sponsoring chapters, divisions, and universities. I would like to thank all of the participating chapters, divisions, and universities for making these webcasts possible. As you can see, we have quite a few webcasts coming up in the next few months. To register for these upcoming webcasts, please visit www.utah-apa.org/webcast and register for your webcast of choice. We are now offering distance education webcasts to help you get your ethics and law credits before the end of the year. These webcasts are available to view at www.utah-apa.org/webcast-archive. And to log your distance education CM credits, go to www.planning.org/CM, select activities by provider, select APA Ohio chapter, and then select distance education and select your webcast of choice. You can now follow us on Twitter @PlanningWebcast to receive up-to-date information on the Planning Webcast series sponsored by chapters, divisions, and universities. To log your CM credits for attending today's webcast, please go to www.planning.org/CM, select today's date, Friday, October 21st, and then select today's webcast, Community Communications 201. This webcast is available for 1.5 CM credits. We are recording today's webcast, and it will be available along with a 6-slide per page PDF of the presentation at www.utah-apa.org/webcast-archive. At this time, I would like to introduce Chris Brown, who will introduce our speakers for today, Paul Grygiel and Justin Auciello.
Thank you, Brittany. My name is Chris Brown. I'm a principal planner for the City of Hoboken. I'm also the Professional Development Officer for the New Jersey chapter of the American Planning Association. And just as a plug, next week we also have Menu for a Healthy Food System at 1 p.m. And also, as of a few weeks ago, I became the Planning Webcast series coordinator, taking over the role from Jennifer Evans-Cowley. For today's webcast, Community Communications 201. We have Paul Grygiel and Justin Auciello. Paul's going to focus on the traditional methods for community involvement, while Justin's going to focus more on new media and its role in public outreach. Just to get to the bios, Paul Grygiel is a principal of Phillips Price Grygiel LLC, a planning and real estate consulting firm located in Hoboken, New Jersey. Mr. Grygiel specializes in comprehensive and neighborhood planning, development review, and expert witness testimony. He integrates economic development, transportation, and market considerations into his land use planning projects in order to help create actionable plans. Mr. Grygiel's work has included directing the preparation of master plans for Hoboken, New Jersey, and Nyack, New York, and overseeing PP&G's work on a neighborhood plan in Wilmington, Delaware, and a corridor study in Washington, D.C. He is currently managing the preparation of the land use element of a new master plan for Newark, New Jersey. Justin Auciello is an associate with Cafone Consulting Group, where he provides diverse planning services to both public and private clients and also serves as the Director of Technology. As a lifelong surfer and coastal conservation advocate, Justin's passion is the preservation of marine ecosystems through innovative planning and common sense approaches, as well as community engagement. He has worked both personally and professionally towards that goal at the Jersey Shore and in western Puerto Rico, where he has a home and volunteers with various coastal conservation groups, including Fundación Surferidón Rincón. Justin has extensive experience in master planning, redevelopment, zoning analysis, urban design, affordable housing, farmland preservation, impact analysis, and expert testimony delivery. In addition, Justin is a new media consultant, political campaign strategist, and a freelance writer. He assists in the visuals and small businesses with copy production, message delivery, and social media platforms. His writing has been featured in newspapers, trade publications, and blogs, and he has been quoted as a planning expert in newspapers. He also taught expository writing at Rutgers College and tutored members of the Rutgers University football team. Justin has a master's in city and regional planning from the Edward J. Blaustein School of Planning and Public Policy at Rutgers University with a concentration in crime prevention through environmental design, CEPTED. So with that, Paul Grygiel.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Just pulled up my presentation here. Hopefully you can all see this. Thank you. As you mentioned, I've been involved throughout the past 15 years or so in numerous master plans, vision plans, other types of projects in communities throughout the Northeast. These range from multi-year 10-plus community meeting projects to ones with a single mandated public hearing at the end where nobody even shows up for the hearing. So there's been really a range of these types of projects that I've dealt with. I'd love to say that each of these has turned out fantastic, but the reality is, unfortunately, that some processes work better than others. So in the next half hour, I'm going to share some of my insights from my experience with regard particularly to community involvement. So up on the screen now is the outline of the presentation, and we'll be dealing with primarily some general community outreach tools to set the stage, and then provide a few examples from real-world projects. So why? Why involve the community? I think this quote from an APA publication from a few years ago puts it best, and puts it in simple terms. I'm not going to read verbatim from all my slides today, but I think this was important to emphasize. Quote, making and implementing great plans requires the cooperation and meaningful participation of political, business, institutional, and neighborhood groups, as well as individual citizens. And there, just to go back to that real briefly, there's a link on the bottom there to the Planner's Communications Guide from which that quote is taken. So in terms of why, involving the community in planning projects is important for a number of reasons. Beyond it being an expectation nowadays, I think what's key to remember is that outside consultants or even city staff almost never have as much knowledge of local issues, history, and such as residents, business owners, and other people who have been in the area for some time do. So it shouldn't just be lip service and having people show up at a final public meeting that's important, but you can actually gain a lot of information that you might not otherwise have without involving the public in a meaningful way. Also, community involvement can provide some legitimacy to the projects where you have controversial topics, that it's not just the bureaucrats or the technocrats, those types of people imposing their will on us, the residents, us, the workers, us, the people who are affected by it. It's key to remember, though, that you can greatly vary your experience with regard to public involvement. Just stepping back for a second to the requirements for this. In the area in which I practice, in New Jersey and New York, there's two very different requirements. New Jersey, for the most part, only requires a single public hearing prior to adoption of a master plan or other types of planning projects. And in fact, no hearing is required for certain types of master plan reexaminations and other projects. By comparison, the state of New York has a very detailed environmental review process which requires a whole range of public involvement opportunities or scoping sessions, that type of thing, a detailed public comment period, etc. But really, when you get down to it, are the results any better? And anyone who's seen projects in both states knows that the quality of a plan is not necessarily directly related to the quality of the public involvement. So again, the key here is to make your participation meaningful. There are a lot of options that you can use. I'll go through momentarily, but really it's what works for one project may vary greatly from other types of projects. And one point I'd also like to emphasize is that despite the new ways of communicating, which our second panelist will talk about, old-fashioned techniques actually still can be very important. So let's go through some of these right now. First, the public meetings. These can take a number of different formats, ranging from, as I mentioned, the public hearing at the end of a project. And I would emphasize that if you only have one public hearing at the end, you probably haven't had meaningful community involvement throughout the process. If it just becomes a gripe session, the last chance for people to say something, it's more than likely that it hasn't been the type of robust involvement that one would like to have. Some other options, though, include workshops. These are more hands-on. You have things like breakout groups, active participation around the table. You see some of the examples on the slides here of participants in various public workshops getting their hands dirty, if you will, drawing on maps, talking to the consultants, talking to city staff. It's a real good way to do it if structured properly. Open houses, those are more of a listening sessions where you have a little bit more time to have people come and go and don't have much of a formal presentation. Charrettes I'm not going to get into because there are people who specialize in that, but let's suffice to say they're more intense workshops, and you can find out more about those, I'm sure, in other webinars. And the last two, focus groups and stakeholder interviews. These are very useful when you're looking for more targeted information, perhaps even one-on-one with the case of stakeholder interviews. For people that might not come to a public hearing or it may not be appropriate for them to speak out at public hearings. What I mean by that is sometimes you have property owners who have potential developments pending. You have city officials that have some information they can't share with the general public at that time. This is a way for consultants and others working on plans to have a chance to find out some information that might not be readily available in the setting of a public meeting. Turning towards some additional old-fashioned techniques, if you will, good old hard copy documents. Because despite the fact that most people are wired nowadays and we assume everyone's online, there certainly are people who do not have internet access, who do not want to go online to get information. So it's important to have, whether it's draft products for a process, meeting information, that type of thing, in places where people can get hard copies or at least review documents. So whether it's libraries, schools, that type of thing. Talking about surveys, these can be done online, but also the more traditional way of either mailing out surveys can be important for getting involvement. Also, things such as merchant surveys, transit users, where it's not even a written survey perhaps, but just a few simple questions that are asked of people who are the target audience of a particular plan. Drop boxes, another old-fashioned technique that's good if someone doesn't want to come speak in a meeting, it doesn't feel like sending an email going online, literally just a suggestion box where you can put feedback on a plan or a project. And lastly, direct mailing. To show one example on here from a master plan project completed a few years ago, which was sent out to every mailing address in the particular municipality. And this is a way to make sure that the entire community knows what's going on with your master plan. It certainly can be costly, and maybe it's overkill for some projects, but for a large scale, large budget type of project, direct mailing can work very well. Wrapping up on some of the older media, newspapers, even though they may be a bit less useful nowadays as circulation drops, there's still nothing quite like having coverage in the in the weekly paper that's distributed throughout a town such as Hoboken, or in daily papers and other places. If you can get a staff writer or someone else on board to cover your project. The examples I show here are a series of articles over a period of 2 years following the Hoboken Master Plan from a few years back. And in addition to the articles, we had op-ed pieces from the mayor, letters to the editor from planning board members, advertising. So essentially, throughout the paper, over the course of the project, there was a lot of information about this. Two last ones here. Exhibits at special events, whether it's music festivals, art festivals, that type of thing, having a table there, information. And one that can be kind of expensive and tough to pull off is to have a field office, even a storefront perhaps, where you have a staff member or someone else available to answer questions, to provide information. But it's really useful if you have an area that's being particularly impacted by a project to have a presence there, a physical presence in terms of a person or at least some information. And lastly, with regard to the tools, websites, again, our next speaker, Justin, will go into a bit more detail on some of these things, but this become pretty standard nowadays to have information put online, to utilize social media, to have videos. So what's right? Short answer is there is no one right approach. It's going to depend on who you're trying to reach, what type of people live nearby, what type of project it is, and how much money and time you have, quite frankly. So it's important to tailor your outreach process to those things. In particular, if you're dealing with areas where you have large populations of seniors, if you have school children that might be affected, maybe you're in a business district, to try to reach out to those particular constituencies. I'm going to focus for the next few minutes on 2 real-life case studies. To try to not get too hung up on the details, I've kept the names generic, but suffice to say they're both located in mid-sized cities in the Northeast and are rather similar places, but as you'll learn in the next few minutes, the approaches and the results vary greatly. So the first one I'll call the neighborhood. This is a plan for an existing community that had some issues, but it was looking to use gentrification that was going on nearby to its benefit and trying to make some improvements, but also to build upon planning efforts that have been going on for some time in the area. One of the keys here were main stakeholders were directly involved in the process. But really the bottom line is it was a pretty standard project, planned to improve a particular section of a community. Just a little bit more background information. It was a minority population here in this area, but also very strong community institutions, and this is important for outreach. A community development corporation that was active and had a headquarters right in the neighborhood, and a number of churches. The project partners here, this also is very important to the success of the project. The state agency was actually heading it, but they set up a steering committee that was comprised of all types of stakeholders. So beyond just residents and some of the property owners, there's a whole list here: the Civic Association, the CDC representatives, people from the churches, the schools, developers, city officials, state officials, county officials, you name it. The MPO was there. Really, anybody who had any type of potential impact on the neighborhood was invited to the table, sitting next to the residents, sitting next to the others who would be affected by the plan itself. So as I mentioned, there's a state agency involved. They're facilitating the project, but there was a very active steering committee, and the head of the local civic association was the chairman of this committee. So that was important, that it was perceived to be a legitimate process by someone that most residents seemed to trust was heading up the efforts. But the other keys were their direct connections to the implementers. And there's also a bit of freedom by not having city money involved as federal money through a state agency. So the types of outreach efforts in this project included some of the traditional ones I talked about, and one that I didn't, a walking tour of the community with steering committee members. That's a very effective way to see issues firsthand, to have the consultants who are coming in from, in this case, from a couple hours away, to come in, walk around, and get to meet some people, see the issues firsthand. In addition, some traditional workshop meetings were held, and at the end there was a final plan presentation. And these are some of the pictures from those various sessions. But one real neat aspect of this plan was at the end, an implementation summit. So shortly after adoption of the neighborhood plan, all these people who had been involved throughout with regard to potential funding for transportation improvements, for tree planting, you name it, the people from the schools, that type of thing, we all sat around a number of tables and prioritized ideas for implementing the plan. With regard to outreach, a few other things that were done, we tried to cover the bases here: posters, surveys, etc. But also what I think was very important was utilizing a network that existed already. There was a school in the neighborhood, and there were active churches. So they were partners in the project to help get the word out about the planning process, to try to get people to come to meetings. Speaking of meetings, something that was very important was the meeting location throughout was right in the heart of the study area. It's a place for the headquarters of the CDC that residents were used to coming to already. So people were comfortable going there. They felt comfortable having their children show up there, who in fact in many cases were already there for after-school programs, that type of thing. So we could piggyback meetings on top of those other types of services that were being provided. So how did it turn out? We had a great plan, very nice looking, a lot of real good recommendations. But more importantly, I think, is that implementation did begin throughout the process. And I think there was also a real benefit here to an outside funding source being involved. Again, this was a federal funded project with a state agency. It gave the freedom to the stakeholders to say, we're going to move forward regardless. Whether you, Mr. Mayor, want to come out to the meetings, or council members or others, that's fine. You're welcome. But we have the money, we have the ability to move forward, whether you want to be involved or not. As I mentioned before, in terms of implementation, there's a summit where we prioritize recommendations and also identified the key people who could, and agencies who could pull them off, who could fund them. The implementers had been involved throughout the process, so that made it a lot easier to get them to the table. And since that time, both the local community development corporation and the Metropolitan Planning Organization for the area have continued planning efforts. So it wasn't just a plan that is, finished, put on the shelf, and just sits there. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, not every project works out that way. And the second case study I'm going to show you, the Avenue, is one that I think falls into that category. This was a corridor revitalization plan, so a little bit different type of area geographically, but had some similar attributes, the study area, to the neighborhood plan. The original objective was connecting an ethnic business district with an untapped college market nearby. One difference, though, from the neighborhood was this was a municipal project, and they were in charge of, the municipal government was in charge of pulling stakeholders together. Just a bit on existing conditions. Sort of a similar setting to the neighborhood. The difference is the railroad station nearby. It's a key gateway corridor to this particular city. But you had the existing university located not far away, which didn't have much interaction with this particular business district. Project partners here, a much more limited list. The municipal government was in charge. They enlisted the Merchants Association early on, and also some citywide, the Economic Development Agency and some other city officials, and the university itself, some representatives from the nearby university. But that was about it. There was limited involvement from other partners. As far as the project management, there was a task force which was more high-level than grassroots. So you had high-level representatives from city government, from the university. The client led the process and didn't have elected officials involved to a great extent. The mayor did show up a couple of times, but that was it. It wasn't that you had a staff member or others that were directly involved for the most part. And there were no direct connections to county or other agencies that would be funding improvements from this project. As far as other outreach efforts, walking tour was undertaken in this case as well with some of the task force members. But beyond that, there wasn't too much that was done, unfortunately, to try to make it a more robust process. So you had a few task force meetings, some internal working meetings, no big workshops, no final presentation of the plan, in fact. And more importantly, there was no big meeting to bring together these various stakeholders. Part of the problem was the emphasis shifted from the early parts of the project, from the merchants, to the latter phases. Was determined the university-related planning was more important. So it was kind of an unfocused project for that matter. So despite other things like a website, online surveys, working through the Merchant Association, etc., there was nobody who was really invested in the project to help move it forward. There was nobody who had any type of credibility to try to push forward implementation with other types of outside agencies. So the results in this case. Again, a nice looking plan from a technical point of view, very solid, but it really was something that was created almost in a vacuum. And that can be can work out poorly when you don't have the people who are going to be affected getting that involved. Sure, we talked to some students, talked to some faculty, talked to some merchants, but there was no one pushing for this plan. There was no neighborhood association, community development corporation, or anyone else who was going to champion it to push it forward. And unfortunately, the plan just sits on the proverbial shelf. So let's talk about some key differences here. I think they come down to a number of things. Who led the process? As I mentioned before, the difference in the neighborhood was having someone who already had local credibility being in charge, and a lot of people that people knew. So it was the community itself versus government or someone coming in from the outside leading the process. Who recommended the actions? Again, stakeholders were involved in the neighborhood. They were the ones who would be affected. They were working side by side with the people who would be, implementing these ideas. Versus in the Avenue, you're dealing with many consultants, the people coming in from the outside, coming up with their own ideas. Same goes for who made the decisions, who pushed for implementation, and again, who funded implementation. The neighborhood, all these entities were together at the table. That was really a key to that project working out well. I strongly recommend, if you're able to do it, to have the implementers from the county, the state, from whatever outside agencies you have in your area who will be holding the purse strings, to be sitting around with the stakeholders early in the process. So just some lessons learned. Even though you may have a lot of outreach, it doesn't necessarily guarantee results. And for that matter, even if you have what you think is meaningful outreach, you may not have the best plan ever, but it sure helps. As I mentioned before, it gives legitimacy, outreach, community involvement, can help overcome controversial topics. It can help deal with intractable issues. Again, it's no guarantee for success, but if you're getting input from the right people, talking to the particular stakeholders, that helps. And as I mentioned at the end here, building upon other efforts. What that means is you have a community development corporation already undertaking some improvements. They're a great partner to get on board. So you're not starting from scratch. If you have churches that are already undertaking efforts and you can piggyback on what they're doing, that's great. Or any other type of local entities that are doing work already, as opposed to having yet another group of outsiders come in and foisting yet another plan or project on a particular area. Just a few thoughts on navigating politics. I mean, it would be nice to think that planning is not affected by political considerations, but that's not the case. To go back to the Planner's Communication Guide, one more quote from that. The local political situation has far more impact on the outcome of planning-related decisions than the principles of good planning. And I actually hadn't seen this guide until somewhat recently, but it really sums up pretty well my experiences on a lot of these types of projects. That for as well-intentioned as consultants and staff members may be, political realities really make a big difference. But that said, elected officials can either help or hurt a process. Because sometimes they're more worried on the next election and short-term thinking versus long-term solutions. But also, sometimes elected officials aren't as popular as they might think they are. So you may have someone who's a champion of your project who's pushing things forward that will then lose the next election and everything that you've done goes to waste. So some tips, and I don't profess to be a huge expert on this, but navigating politics, the more you know, the better. You need to figure out who you're dealing with in terms of constituencies, who holds the purse strings, who are the key people who you need to work with to make things happen, to implement your project. But if possible, it's great if you can take politics out of making decisions. This is where a steering committee or task force can be very important. If the membership is done correctly, if you have local leadership, if it's viewed as a true task force that has decision-making power, that makes a big difference compared to having something that seems to be just set up as lip service to the community. So just some closing thoughts. I can only emphasize involving the proper stakeholders as much as possible, as early as possible. It's imperative that you don't come up with some ideas, get the process rolling, and then halfway through say, oh yeah, we want to hear from you. When possible, you want to start right at the beginning, identify who you need to be talking to, who should be at the table, and get them involved in the process. Reaching out as many ways as feasible. Again, I gave a long list of possible techniques you can utilize for community involvement, and not all of them will work necessarily, but if it's within the budget, if it's something that can happen and would make sense for the particular project area, the more ways the better. But that said, it needs to be meaningful. You don't want to waste your time and efforts overdoing the involvement if it's not going to have any type of impact on the project itself. Utilize existing infrastructure and quotes. That's again going back to when you have strong community institutions, you have civic leaders, you have others who've been pushing for planning in your project area. Certainly work with them, try to build upon what's been done previously. No need to reinvent the wheel. And lastly, I think the important thing is to stress connections between the public input and involvement process to actual plan recommendations. So someone who showed up in a meeting and gave an idea can then look at the finished product and say, hey, I thought of that, or I was involved in that discussion. It's a lot. It can really go a long way to, again, legitimizing planning process. That concludes my presentation. My contact information is up here on the screen. I'd be glad to speak with any of you or to email with any of you with any follow-up questions. And of course, I believe we'll have certainly some discussion and questions today. But at this time, I'm going to turn the presentation over to our next presenter, Justin Auciello.
Thank you so much, Paul. My presentation is going to focus. Let me get my screen up real quick, okay? Hello, everyone. My presentation is going to piggyback on Paul's. Paul covered the the old school way of handling planning throughout the process. Mine is not to say that social media obviously is the end all be all, but ultimately social media is a great complement to the standard way, the classical way of going through the planning process. To give you a little background on myself, I've been a planner professionally now for approximately 6 years. I've been using the internet since about 1992. When I was about 12 years old, I got a internet account from my father, who's a graduate of Rutgers University. His library account came with an email account, and from that I was able to access the text-based internet back then. I've been using social media for forever, it seems like, and in recent years I've been trying to push a lot of my friends, a lot of my clients, a lot of municipalities throughout New Jersey and the area to get on social media and get involved, because as you'll see in my presentation, ultimately this is such a valuable tool for our toolbox as planners, and it's something that we really need to embrace. I mean, businesses have been embracing social media for years now, and as planners, representing both the private and the public side, when we present plans, we're ultimately trying to sell this to the public, and there's no better way of getting the public involved than through the use of social media. So let's start. As you've probably heard in the past, there's been criticism that the traditional methods don't really provide a certain level of outreach. Now, Paul covered a lot of fantastic, great methods that will always be used, and they are invaluable to getting people out to your meeting. But unfortunately, the criticism that I've been hearing in recent years, since when social media has really hit its stride, is that the old methods kind of go in one ear and come out the other. Sometimes people feel that they're being spoken to, not spoken with, and social media helps to bridge that gap from the old way of thinking to the new way of thinking. Again, there will always be room for the old methods, and they obviously still apply. Social media is just another tool in our toolbox. So what's the new model? It's dialogue. The dialogue is what makes social media. It's the ability to have a two-way conversation. So that begs the question: what is social media? Is it this? Now, as you can see, these are icons of just there's so many social media applications out there on the internet to use. It's a matter of figuring out what's going to work for you, what's going to work for your objectives the best. It's actually this. It's actually the dialogue. The people make social media. I think the term social says it all. Ultimately, without the dialogue, you really just have the one-way conversation. Somebody pumping it out there, dropping down, and you see it. And if you don't have the ability to respond to it, it's not social. So it's the dialogue, again, powered by all of the tools that you have available at your disposal when you need it for your project. So to recap, social media is people using tools, the commonly known blogs, video, Facebook, Twitter, and sites like Facebook and Flickr to share content and have conversations online. Again, it's all about the conversation. Social media is not successful, especially in the planning process, if you're just dictating a message. I think Paul covered it in a fine way by discussing all of the tools that are available offline, and again, that's very powerful. And as we all know as planners, when a plan is sometimes pushed through without going through the outreach process, then of course that's not a two-way process. That's a one-way process, and it creates conflicts of the production of a plan that has not been fully vetted with the public. So why should we really care about the use of social media? Well, because 2/3 of the global internet population visits social networks. That's huge. Obviously, in the United States, I think I can just speak for myself that my parents, who are not computer savvy at all, are on various social media sites. Now, that's not to say that they know exactly how to use them, but they are out there, and people are listening. Difference is people may not be able to communicate back to you in the way that you would expect. That's because there's a learning curve, but people are listening and they are out there, and your message is getting out. So, I showed the screen earlier with all of the different social media options, tools that you have as a planner, but with so many different options, how can planners engage the public in a fruitful, meaningful way? It just, if you're hearing this for the first time, which I'm sure you're not, it can seem overwhelming. And in fact, it is overwhelming. It's overwhelming in the sense that that you do have so many tools, and I don't care how many tools there are out there, but ultimately, if you don't know how to use them to your advantage, then odds are it's not going to work in your favor, especially because social media also presents some dangers that I'm going to get into later on in the presentation. So the traditional methods that Paul had just discussed, they still apply, and they're never going to go away. And this is from the APA's 2006 Planning and Urban Design Standards Guide. This basically gives you a framework of how to approach the public side of working through a plan. Obviously, as planners, we have an obligation, whether it's working for the public or the private sector client, to involve the citizens in the planning and design decision-making process. That is our ultimate goal, because we are working in the public service. We want to give the public a voice. We want to give the public a voice, not in such a way where, okay, we're going to have one meeting and you speak and the plan's already done, which does happen, but we want to give them a voice that's meaningful, and that as planners we can take that to heart, and take it back and work through the plan to make it better to serve all the citizens. And also through this process, we want to facilitate community building by creating a forum for their involvement. And I think that's where social media really comes into play, because ultimately social media, again, I just want to reemphasize, social media is out there, everyone's on it, and it's not going away. So as planners, it is a valuable tool that's going to benefit us in the future. The traditional engagement model, again, you develop the framework, you hold the public meeting, and you finish and adopt the plan. Of course, as Paul just presented, you have a system through which you have various different types of meetings. You may have charrettes, design sessions, what have you, but ultimately it's the public meeting, and the public meeting should not be the first time that the public hears about about the topic at hand. This should be going on throughout the process, and as Paul has pointed out, there are different outreach methods that do go on in the traditional side, but I just want to show you the next slide because this is going to show you the new engagement model. Now, the new engagement model essentially takes the center line of the old model, but it also adds two different sides. It also adds your side and the public side. Now, social media is open to anyone, and that is part of the, I guess some will say that is the fear that some people have of going down the social media route. Ultimately, you want to be able to have your own presence. Create Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, have a blog presence. You want to be able to produce content, engage, and you want to keep that process going on. And through that process, you're going to be able to formulate topics for discussion at the public meeting. On the other hand, you're also going to have you're going to have exposure. There are community sites that are out there, and they may have social media accounts or they may not, but you're also going to have people that may be for or against your project with social media accounts. Okay, they're going to be pushing content out there, and you need to. This is where it becomes very critical. You need to decide how you're going to engage. Obviously, if you're working for a municipality, you're gonna want to engage in a proper way. You don't want to use any foul language. You want to be working with the people, not against them. And of course, you're going to want to monitor, respond, and engage again. This framework is, as you can see, it's all systemic, and it adds on to both sides of the old school model. So obviously right now a lot of our municipalities throughout the country are dealing with limited budgets, and that's certainly an issue. But social media is free, user friendly, and the user base is constantly growing. I think I've covered that pretty clearly. And again, the proper use of social media is through a systemic approach. Ultimately, as I just covered, everything is connected one way or another, and this will be made clear coming up in the next few slides. So, as I've been discussing, there are various tools out there, and the conversations are powered by everything from, you can see going down the list, blogs, microblogs, chat, RSS, widgets, social networks, message boards, podcasts, so on and so forth. You have, your toolbox is overflowing with options. You just need to be able to find what works best for your project. Again, these are a bunch of different tools that you have available. Some of them may not be the most appropriate for your project, but this is just to show how everything is linked together. Now, one of the most popular outreach methods that people have been using, and the planners have been using for projects, is Facebook. I think all of us know about Facebook. We all may have accounts on Facebook. As of the other day, I'm sure there are more now. There are almost 1 billion users worldwide. 350 million of them plus use it on their phones. Twitter is not as popular as Facebook, but obviously it doesn't have the membership of Facebook. But obviously it's just as popular, if not as well known. It has 100 million users, and 50 million of them, almost half, are using it on their phones. YouTube, I think we all know about YouTube. 2 billion video views a day and 100 million mobile views. Blogs. there are over 200 million blogs in the blogosphere, as it's called, and it's growing every day, and people are constantly sharing their opinion. Everybody who wants to speak their mind can speak their minds. Photo sites, I think Flickr is the most popular on here, and there are thousands of pictures uploaded to Flickr every minute. So the question is, how do we get started? I think this is the most challenging aspect of the process. Is that people don't know. It's such a confusing array of tools out there that don't really know how we get started. So obviously, number one, you have to have a strategy. You don't undertake a social media campaign and expose yourself to literally everyone in the world without a fixed strategy. And yeah, hope is not a strategy. Praying at a house of worship is going to do you no good if you don't have something concrete working for you. You really want to, if you're not very comfortable with using social media, obviously you can hire someone to do it for you, or you can do it yourself. And I think the reason why social media is so powerful is that it's universal and it's open, and anyone who takes the chance to learn a little bit can do it. So you want to experiment personally prior to undertaking a public project. Obviously, you want to get a flavor of how it works, of how it functions, and how you can have that two-way dialogue that I've been emphasizing. You want to try a variety of social media tools. You don't want to just use Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, again, the most common ones. You want to try a variety of the different tools that are available, and you want to figure out which works best for you, and also which one works best for your project. You want to be yourself, you want to make friends, and you want to share. Ultimately, the better you get at doing it on the personal side first is obviously going to help you tremendously when you need to do it on the professional side. And of course, I just want to reemphasize the fact that that when you're working for the public, you do have an ethical obligation, and you are exposed, and there are always going to be, even in the traditional model and the new model, there are always going to be people out there that are attacking you, and you need to find a way to respond in a fair and tactful manner. So again, it's about the dialogue. So you want to listen. Ultimately, you want to listen, because if you're not listening, you're not going to have the ability to respond. So you want to immerse yourself in the conversations. You want to, and I'm not even talking about in text conversations. You can really have a conversation with, obviously, with videos and with pictures. You want to see what people are presenting, what people are putting out there. You want to get a feel. Basically, you want to scan the environment, and you have to know what's going on before you can respond. You want to listen to the conversation. This is very simply. I went into Twitter. I was trying to find a keyword where I could find a variety of different topics coming up, and I typed in New York City neighborhood in the Twitter search box. I figured we would get some interesting stuff. And as luck may have it, right in the middle here, we have two planning-oriented tags tweets that popped up. I thought that was pretty interesting, and kind of this shows how you can monitor the conversation, and you can have a feel what's going on, what people are saying, so on and so forth. This is a Facebook page. I'm going to go a little more into depth later. Save the North Beach of Asbury Park. This was created by the Surfrider Foundation of the Jersey Shore, and this is basically a community page that was formed to get the message out there that this organization is not happy with a townhome plan in the city of Asbury Park along the Jersey Shore, and trying to get people engaged in their mission. And of course, if you're working on the municipal side and you're a municipal planner, you should be following this page. You want to be able to monitor what people are saying, because ultimately you want to be able to work with people. You want to be able to respond to the criticism and the comments by people. And as you can see, this page has approximately 1,500 people that like it, meaning that when anything is posted on this page, it drops down into their newsfeed on Facebook, and then if you like it, you have the ability to comment and share it, and then obviously something can go viral. I think we all know what viral means. Something can kind of take on a life of its own. You want to create Google accounts based on keywords. I run a service called New Jersey Land Use News, and I aggregate news stories. I try to do it on a daily basis. Sometimes work gets very busy and I don't have a chance to do it on a daily basis, but I try my best. But ultimately, I aggregate news stories from throughout New Jersey, and the way I do it is I created Google alerts for these keywords. Now, of course, you're a planner working for a municipality. You want to be able to monitor what's going on out there in the internet, and this is a great way of doing it. You also want to follow local media. I think following local media is imperative because these are the professionals who are writing stories, and they're going out there. It's great to emphasize too that a lot of these sites have comments, and if there's a story, these are both from Hoboken, New Jersey, which is right across the river from New York City, from Manhattan, and again, the top stories were planning related to in some respects on the Hoboken patch, and you have readers have the ability to write comments. So again, if you're working for the city of Hoboken, you want to be able to monitor what's going on. It's engagement. Again, I talk about that two-way, that dialogue, and it's all about the conversation. You're a planner. You're working in Saginaw, Michigan. They came up with the idea of exploiting the use of Facebook to their advantage. Like I've started to notice, a lot of municipalities have been doing that. A lot more. I would love for them to, in New Jersey, a lot more municipalities to do so, but we're getting there. Saginaw, Michigan, they have a Facebook page, like the Save the North Beach of Asbury Park. This is from the municipal standpoint. They're trying to promote their master plan, and they're seeking comment. They're not only seeking comment, but they're also trying to engage people. And again, if you notice the share button there, if you like this page, which they hope that a lot of people like it, I'm sure. 413 people like it. If something pops down that you say, oh, my neighbors would be interested, hit the share button, and that gets thrown into your news feed, and that's how you can generate comments, and you're doing a great service to the community. Facebook page can generate comments for everyone to see. I think this is very important. I posted this. I'm the Vice President of Public Relations for the APA-NJ, and I posted this from my personal blog. People always ask me what I do for a living. I say I'm a planner, and I usually get, what kind of events or parties do you plan? And I wrote a blog post about it a few years ago, so I posted this on our page, and as you can see, I wanted to show it of how to generate dialogue. I asked people, how do you define the profession? And then we got a response. And then the comments went on and so forth. I saw people had shared this as well. This is valuable, again, as a planner before the public hearings, to get the message out there, to get the feedback back from people, and to formulate the best plan possible using social media. You want to tweet as well. You want to be able to get your message out there. This is our APA-NJ's page. Twitter is another service. Facebook is more closed in the sense that you don't really have the easy ability to follow. Obviously, from the friend standpoint, that's more closed. But we have Facebook pages which are open. Twitter is more short form, micro blogging in a sense. You can't really no comments here. The only comments are at replying back to people. But this is another valuable tool. And this is the engagement in using Twitter. If, for example, you want to direct people to your Facebook page or your blog, you can use Twitter to send it out to expand your social graph. People can respond. This is actually Chris Brown, who's a moderator here. He's right on the bottom here. So this is how we get people involved. You want to create a YouTube channel. This channel was created by the city of Mobile, Alabama, and this is you can post meetings here. You can post walking tours, whatever, what have you. And if you have a long planning process, this is how you can get more people involved and more people educated on the issue. You want to create a Flickr photo stream. This is from the city of New York, from the mayor's office, and this is again, you can use this to your advantage throughout the planning process, going up to the public hearing. You know, posting pictures of a redevelopment area, of walking tour, etc. You want to blog. This is obviously more long form, but this is how you can really flesh out ideas and present information, and everything is linked again. Everything is systemic. Everything can be shared from a blog to Facebook to Twitter. That's how you spread the word. And if you notice on the top here, there's a box here to share your input, and this is like as Paul just spoken to, this is kind of like the Dropbox. Hey, you're not involved in social media, or you have no interest in it, or you don't want to go to the hearing, you can at least share your input, and the message can get sent to the parties that may be. You can see they have a tab here for maps and draft. That's obviously very, very important to give everyone the full flavor of what's happening. You want to use a service like SlideShare to post presentations. A service like this allows people, this can be linked to any social media, and presentations can be posted. So when the next public hearing comes up on that matter, people will be educated and they'll be able to speak their minds. So as I've been talking about, as you can see, everything is all connected. Ultimately, social media landscape is wide and far, and this all can be used to our advantage as planners. And this is kind of where the controversial side comes in. You want to relinquish control to a certain extent. Now, you want to enable conversations, facilitate connections, and stoke engagement. You know, as I've been talking about, this is about the two-way dialogue, and this allows you to influence but never control. You don't want to control. You don't want to take full dominion over an issue, because the whole point is to get people involved. And if people feel like you're trying to take power over them, that's not engagement. And you also must be able to deal with controversial situations. Obviously, we can't escape politics. Politics is everywhere. People may try to spin something, you know, along the lines that's inappropriate or doesn't apply. You want to be able to moderate that. You don't want to start deleting all negative comments, because again, that's unethical, and that's not what planners should be doing. But you want to be able to address these issues in an honest, straightforward, and fair way. Like we do with anything else, we want to measure the results of our undertaking. Is it worth we need to see if it's worth it in the future. For a blog, you can use Google Analytics. This is a great tool which will allow you to show where people are coming from, the content that they're looking at, how they got there, so on and so forth. YouTube Analytics, for if you're running a YouTube page, you can see which videos or have your general account, or specifically which videos have the most impressions on people. Facebook offers very unique analytics. You have your standard reporting with the impressions your post made, clicks, video plays, and they also offer enhanced reporting. As you can see what worked, what didn't work, and where you want to go in the future. So again, just an overview of the analytics. Why are they critical? It identifies what works and what doesn't. It allows you to learn from experience. And lastly, it allows you to devise a better plan for the next time you want to undertake a social media campaign. And it is critical because if you can't learn from your experience, obviously the next time, especially something as exposing as social media, that could be an issue. So you really need to pay attention to your analytics. Again, I just want to reemphasize the fact that the conversations are powered by all different tools, all different types of social media out there, and you really need to find out what's the most appropriate in your toolbox. So what are the basic rules? Let's go through these one more time. Have a strategy. Strategy is absolutely critical, especially if this is the first time you're undertaking using social media for the planning process. Again, praying is great, but hoping for hoping is not your best strategy. You want to listen. You want to listen to what people are talking about, because that's the only way you're going to be able to formulate a way to respond back to them honestly, timely, and in an accurate fashion. You want to engage. You want to be able to engage with everyone, and that comes from the first perspective of listening. You want to engage in all the different social media sites and media publications that are discussing about your project, talking about your project. Number 4, you want to measure. You want to see how well it worked, how well your campaign worked for you, because again, you want to see what type of audience you reached. You want to see what level of engagement, how it worked. You want to see how loyal people were to the undertaking. You want to see how this had an influence on them through the process, and you also want to have an action plan for next time. So that concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Justin. That was a great presentation. Also, Paul, I appreciate the thoroughness in both of your presentations. Also, with the attendees, we're looking pretty strong on our participation. So I thank you guys for all hanging in there. There was a couple of questions from the audience. One specifically from, sorry, just getting it up, Claudia Bittram. Claudia's question was, how much involvement does your firm have in establishing and implementing a strategy for outreach, and how much influence in identifying and how much influence in identifying those stakeholders who should be at the table does your firm have, and also who's in charge of communications and updates to the community? So it's a 3-part question.
It's a great question. The easy answer is it depends. The problem I have, as a consultant, is we are often brought in after the stage is set for a project. So you're sometimes relying upon a client who has already set up a task force, for example. But when possible, we will certainly recommend ways to create outreach opportunities and to improve the ones that have been provided already. But it depends on the project is the short answer. Certainly, for those of you who work in government and are setting up the process, that's they usually have more of a say in this type of thing. But as far as who at the firm does it, it depends as well. But when I'm the principal in charge of project or project manager, we usually have the direct contact with the client to make recommendations. And there's been many times where we've recommended, well, you might want to do this differently, or you might want to add on, having a website for for posting documents. You might want to have the Dropbox. You might want to put the documents in the library, that kind of thing. So we certainly try to provide some additional suggestions as well.
Awesome, awesome. Justin, for you, Elaine Clishan asks that she feels a certain type of way about Flickr. Could you briefly cover the relative benefits of Flickr versus Facebook versus photos on Facebook pages, besides being more public?
Sure. Flickr is basically an open system whereby people can view your photos, can make comments of your photos, and through Flickr you have the ability to, like many of the other social media sites, you have the ability to share them on different social media platforms, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Tumblr, any of the microblog sites. On the other hand, on the Facebook side, Facebook is more of a closed network. Facebook, again, you can have a Facebook group or a Facebook page, and you can have, as we all know, you can have a photo section in there. Now, depending upon the privacy settings, those photos may not be readily available or viewable to the public at large. So I think from the planning standpoint, the Flickr photo stream is probably the best mechanism. Of course, you can do both. There's nothing wrong with having both a Twitter and a Flickr and a Facebook photo mechanism. But I think the Flickr will allow you more control, and again, it kind of takes it out of the realm of Facebook. And again, with Flickr, you can easily share any of those individual pictures quite easily through the other social media outlets.
Okay. Justin, I have another social media question for you. Some clients don't seem quite ready to let their consultants help them make their first foray into social media. How do you ease them into it? And this is coming from Eve Hallberg. Okay,
that's a great question, and that's something that I thought that was gonna come up, and I think obviously the biggest fear that people have allowing their consultants to manage their social media is that I guess everyone has heard the horror stories. One slip up can ruin a career, so to speak. You need to ease your clients into it by basically showing them that it works. People are using it on the public and private side. The engagement is key because ultimately you'll be able to say you're working for a private client or whatever, even a public client. You'll be able to you'll be able to listen and engage on what people are discussing in advance of the meeting. You'll be able to hammer out issues well in advance, and you'll be able to work with people. And I think that obviously having that dialogue is key. So I would suggest to a client, basically sit down with them, run them through various examples of past successes using social media. As you can see, Saginaw, Michigan is one example of many of a community that is using it to their advantage. And basically, they kind of need to go on blind faith. They need to be able to trust you. But ultimately, if you're serving them in the professional client relationship, you obviously have an obligation to do it ethically. So I think they should go off that and accept it as it is. But I would absolutely recommend talking to all your clients and preaching them to this and getting them on board.
Okay, we actually have a couple more social media questions, but I'm going to lob one at Paul. This one's actually from me. As a private sector planner, how do you incorporate strong community engagement within a within a competitive budget?
You're asking me to give away my secrets. No. Yeah, it's tough. That's the balance you have. As I mentioned, it'd be great in all projects to have, a storefront office as well as, a robust website with videos and all these other types of things. The reality is you need to focus on who you're trying to reach and what's the best way to do that. So you might not need a robust web presence necessarily if you have, a very focused, geographic area. To go back to the neighborhood example, if you have people who are going to be walking through the project area on a regular basis and can attend meetings by walking there, it's a much different consideration. But that's the issue that also government agencies need to be cognizant of as well. That if you're looking to undertake a large-scale planning project, you need to allow for some room in the budget for robust community participation. So that's certainly, it's a great question. It's something that's always consideration. But I think that the key is, again, tying it back to who the stakeholders are, and that actually ties back into my point about working with existing organizations and the infrastructure, so to speak. So you maybe don't have to go out of your way to create new methods of reaching out to the community. You can tie together with the existing organizations. One quick example is in the neighborhood project. That the meetings actually sometimes overlapped or were follow-ups to the civic association meetings. So people are going to be coming there anyway for a meeting. You hold your neighborhood plan meeting right after or concurrent with it.
Very thorough answer. Thank you. Cleared that one up. Justin, I have one for you from C. Dean Martin. How do you prevent social media input from being hijacked by strident folks who may not even be part of the planning area?
That's a great question. From personal experience, I operate a feed on Facebook called Jersey Shore Hurricane News. I started that up in advance of Hurricane Irene, and it's kind of taken on a life of its own. It's evolved from hurricanes, and it's come into severe weather and weather of all types. From personal experience, there have been people who have attempted to hijack feeds like that, post even on this feed for their own personal perspective, their own advantage, and obviously I need to moderate this. The difficult side of it is that really you need to be on this almost 24 hours a day, or you need to have a team of people monitoring the sites, because you don't want people to take control, which they can easily do, and turn it into something that it shouldn't be. Now, of course, with Facebook, for example, if you're operating a page, you have full moderation powers. You can block people. You can delete comments. But again, this comes back to ethics. As planners, we can't just be deleting comments that may be contrary to our objectives, or maybe even totally off the point. I think from the social media standpoint, if it's getting out of control, you need to emphasize people that this is the topic at hand, this is what we're discussing, and we need to stay on point. Again, that's easy to do on Facebook. Twitter, not so much, because dialogue is occurring whether you even know it's occurring or not, especially on Twitter. Blogs, you can moderate it in the comments section. A lot of the local media sites in New Jersey do that quite well. Some do it quite well, some don't. But ultimately, the moderation is key. You need to be out there. You need to be. This is a constant. Social media never sleeps. So you need to have a team working with you, and that's how you're going to accomplish that.
Justin, just one quick follow-up point. The reality is, and what you can stress to your clients, is that people are online already, and whether you control the message or not, there's going to be online discussion more than likely. Whether
Yes.
it's for a large planning project or even a development application. Nowadays, with the hyper-local sites, with the ease of setting up blogs and that, people are going to be out there. So that's the other thing I think you can emphasize, is that it's more, if you don't do it, someone else will control the message even more so.
Yes, and Paul is absolutely right. The message, the dialogue is occurring. Social media is everywhere. People are talking, and you want to be able to control your message. You want to be able to have that message crafted to your advantage. So ultimately, you need to be out there in the whole social media landscape, and you need to be listening and engaging. And that is, I'm not going to lie, it is a monumental undertaking, but in the end, it is going to work to your advantage.
All right. I have one from Karen Gavrilovic. Sorry if I just mispronounced the name. Do you know of any planning agencies that have a planner dedicated to social media outlet management? It seems like it could turn into a full-time job, particularly on a controversial plan or project. Also, does the local government ensure coordinated responses if several staffers/agencies are responding to blog comments?
I don't know off the top of my head any planners who are actively involved in the social media, I guess you could say, editor aspect of a planning agency. Again, I've been trying to push municipalities in New Jersey over the past few years to do so. And a lot of the times they have a public information officer undertaking that, but they're not planners. They're PR people. Nothing wrong with that. I'm a PR person myself, but I'm also a planner. I think we need the planners involved. I I can look into that. If you send me an email, I can look into that, and I can let you know because I'm curious to that as well. And Chris, can you repeat the second part of that question, please?
Sure. Also, how does a local government ensure coordinated responses if several staffers and agencies are responding to blog comments?
That's a very good question. And ultimately, when you undertake a social media campaign for a planning project in your pre-meeting, everything should really be coming from one or two people. It should be coming from the team. Obviously, if for example you're dealing with a number of different agencies within a municipality, and say you're a planner and there's an engineering question, and you don't have an engineer on your team, well, say, you know what, I'll get back to you on that. I'll let you know. Obviously, it's not going to be that real-time, instantaneous response, but you really need to have your team set up so any questions can be directed to the right party. But again, this goes back to the point that the smaller the better. You want to be able to have control. You want to be able to have one unified message, and it's easier to do so when you only have a few people operating social media rather than 10 people, because then messages can get crossed, and then of course you could have you can be embarrassed in front of the public.
Okay, I have a pretty interesting question here from Peter Johnston. Given the alleged role of social media in the unrest in the Middle East, and considering the results, can local governments risk not embracing social media?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely critical. Obviously, Twitter. I've been a Twitter user since 2007. Actively for a while. I kind of got off it on a daily basis last year or so, but I've seen so many breaking news events come through social media, not even from the mainstream media, come directly through the social media. People out there are seeing stuff. People out there are using police scanners to report. So ultimately, if you're not on social media, your municipality is really being left in the dark. As I said, I ran a Facebook feed, Jersey Shore Hurricane News, during Irene, and I was up for almost 3 days straight without very little sleep, very little food, because there was a service to be at. People were asking questions nonstop, and I was providing a service to people when a lot of the mainstream media wasn't covering it, and the municipalities weren't involved. And I actually got messages from various municipalities asking me, saying, thank God for this, because we didn't have information, and people were calling us. And I said to them, well, how come you didn't have a robust social media outlet? And they said, well, we didn't think about it. So ultimately, you need to be prepared, even from the disaster standpoint, but from the planning standpoint, you need to be prepared. You need to be able to craft your message, get it out there, and engage the people. And if you don't have that, you're really missing out on an amazing opportunity to really do something great for your community.
Chris, if I can just follow up with somewhat of a counterpoint. Well, I recognize there's the traffic out there on social media already anyway. I think it's important to remember that a long-term planning process shouldn't be hijacked by the issue of the day or the something that's hot for a short time. It's not to say it's important. So you shouldn't have these types of tools. But just like even in the old days before there were Twitter and these types of things, oftentimes projects will get sidetracked by focus on something that is really, in the end, not the big issue. So I think planners need to take the bigger view of looking at the overall project of what's important and not, allowing the short-term issues to overtake a project.
Yes, and Paul, I totally agree. We need to be looking at this from the global perspective. People in social media, a lot of time, everyone has their own agenda, and a lot of the times people are focusing on the granular issues of the day. And as someone who manages social media, you need to keep that focus. You need to keep your vision intact, and that needs to be reemphasized to the people on really a daily basis. And again, Paul, I agree with you. The downside is that if people aren't monitoring, which most people aren't, aren't monitoring your page on a daily basis, well, you're going to be asked to repeat stuff a lot. So that's why having your blog linked to Facebook, linked to Twitter, and not relying solely on one social media outlet is absolutely critical to your social media campaign as a planner.
Wow. Okay. Well, I think those are great points to leave off on. And Paul, I'm glad that you mentioned that point, because I think it's a really strong and pragmatic point of view. With that said, I think our question and answer session has come to an end. And at this moment, I'd just like to thank both Paul Grygiel and Justin Auciello for being our presenters today. I'd like to thank Brittany for setting up the webcast system, and I'd like to thank all of our attendees for being on the line today and just being patient and going through with us. So thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Justin, Paul, and Chris for being our moderator for today. For those of you who are still in attendance, I'm going to go over just a few reminders in just a moment. Let me get my slides pulled up and we'll get going. All right, so first off, to log your CM credits for attending today's webcast, please go to www.planning.org/CM. Select today's date, Friday, October 21st, and then select today's webcast, Community Communications 201. This webcast is available for 1.5 CM credits. Also, we are recording today's webcast session, so you will be able to find a recording of this webcast along with a 6-slide per page PDF at www.utah-apa.org/webcast-archive. This concludes today's session, and I want to thank everyone again for attending.